Hey, welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm John Lincove.
And I'm Kelly Funkhauser.
So this week we have an interesting EV this week. It's the Kia EV6. No 90s rock music jokes. It's the EV6, and it is Kia's first entrant into this kind of new crop of these purpose-built EVs. It's built on the same underlying platform as the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Kia and Hyundai share a corporate parent, but the car itself is very different. It starts around $40,000 and starts with a range of about 232 miles, and that $40,000 is before the $7,500 tax credit. So this is an affordable vehicle. We drove, we rented from Kia a GT line version of this vehicle, which is a dual motor all-wheel drive version of it. It cost about $56,000 before the tax credit, and it has about a 310 mile range estimate. So this is an all new platform. And one nice thing about that is that means, before we get to anything else, that means it comes with a ton of tech and safety stuff, right, Kelly?
Yeah, so the EV6 comes with lots of standard ADAS equipment. So it's got the automatic emergency braking, blind spot warning. It even has that little display that pops up in your instrument cluster, and it's a camera view of the blind spot when you turn your turn signal on. My favorite thing that I'm really excited about is the augmented reality heads-up display. So this is a heads-up display that's projected onto the windscreen in front of you, and it has information about the ADAS systems that you might have on. So say you have even navigation and you're going to a route, it will project little turn arrows right next to the actual street rather than, kind of guessing if there's a few little streets coming up. It will show you exactly the right one that you need to turn on. And it also has, with the adaptive cruise control, it puts a little light bar indicating that it's tracking, in a way, the car in front of you. So you can see that, all right, the car, it's using the adaptive cruise control, it's locked on to that one in front of me, and it's going to adjust the speed. So it has all these little extra bells and whistles, like you said, that are really exciting, and especially exciting that it's in a Kia. We've seen this before from, some of the luxury brands like Mercedes.
Just to clarify, ADAS, ADAS, what's that acronym stand for?
Sorry, yes, I do the alphabet soup. Yeah, exactly. Advanced Driver Assistance System. So that covers everything from those active safety things, like I said, automatic emergency braking, all the way to convenience features, which are lane centering and adaptive cruise control and stuff that we kind of think of as building blocks towards self-driving cars.
So this is kind of a car this is Kia's kind of next step, like next generation. It's got all the new stuff. It's not just electrified, but it also has that technology as well.
Yeah, it's joining the big leagues and it's impressive.
I know Kia told us they targeted at the Mach-E, the Model Y, and the Volkswagen ID4. So it's kind of it's definitely the big leagues. Who is this car? Who is this car for?
Well, interestingly enough, Kia, when Kia did a presentation for us on the EV6, they brought the general marketing materials, and maybe on one hand you could be a little surprised. On one hand, you could look at it and say, maybe they're just being honest, in that they're not saying that they're building a car for everyone, from the college graduate up to the retired baby boomer. They're targeting people with large household incomes, 100,000 or so, and up, singles and single people, childless couples, or people who have decided not to have children, or people who have yet to have children. It's marketing stuff, but for the most part, it's going to be your early adopters, people who have kind of flexible lives. They own their own homes because obviously they're going to probably, this isn't what they said, but because they have to be able to charge the vehicle. So they're going to want to be able to put a charger in their house versus living in a community where they can't do that, or renting a home. But the families that do have kids are probably going to be looking at smaller children, preteens, late single digit children, so to speak, not big kids, not big families like that.
Yeah. What's the size of the vehicle itself? Because it can be, I know I was kind of surprised when I first saw it, because I'd seen pictures of it and then I saw it in person, and it seemed like kind of one of Brian Pizlkowski, I ran into him. He said, it kind of looks like a little rally car. The size of it's like it's a little smaller than you think, but it's a little bigger than a small vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't consider it. Look, no one's going to say it's not a Volkswagen GTI size. It's bigger than that. It has more presence, but it's not the SUV way that many manufacturers have gone to start. Is it all-wheel drive? Yes. Is it a crossover? Okay, whatever people want to call it, the terms, and play with that. Great. Yes, it's not an off-road vehicle, but it certainly comes with all-wheel drive for all-weather capability, and with also brings some performance with dual motors. But yeah, it's a hatchbacked mid-size sedan, if you want, maybe a generation prior Camry size, or Toyota Camry or something like that size, but more of a hatchback. It's plenty roomy for 4 people, even 5 people, and you get flat load floors, across the whole thing, flat floor, so you don't have issues with where your feet are going to go or such. So it's very roomy, and I would say, even having seen the Toyota Mirai fuel cell vehicle and such, this doesn't have the constraints as cargo that vehicles like that have, because everything's below the floor, so you have the full fold down seats, etc. So it's not a vehicle I think that anyone will go, well, it's making a major compromise to buy it size wise, unless you're coming out of a Chevy Tahoe, unless you're coming out of a Kia Telluride into it. Yeah, it's average American family vehicle.
Kelly, did the dog make it into the back of this vehicle, or were we not allowed to do that? Do you think it would when you saw it? Is this as the dog owner on this podcast? Is this a sort of a? Does it look like a dog would fit in the back?
I wouldn't buy this for a dog family car. I'd look for something a little bit larger. I consider it kind of what John was saying, more of a sedan with a hatchback than even a crossover. So if you have that expectation going into it, then I think you're going to be happy. If you are expecting something larger to put a dog in, I have a big dog, then you might be a little disappointed.
Yeah, little Chihuahua would be totally fine.
Yeah, just a little one. Just a little one that you can just put
a pug.
Yeah. Not a big guy that needs to,
Yeah.
I would say that if you're going into this expecting, however, to see out of the back, much like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, be prepared in the winter to be severely disappointed, because they don't seem to have rear wipers. And because they're hatchbacks, they have a big angled window. And with winter weather up here in Connecticut, both of them, very quickly, the rear windows became covered in muck. Not stuff like big glops of snow or anything like that, but just spray, just aerodynamic spray, wind-driven dirt and such. And then you're forced to clean it yourself repeatedly because you can't see out of it while you're driving. So yes, you're forced to clean the window. Okay, but it would be a lot easier if there was at least a small wiper. I mean,
but John, that's assuming you can see out of this thing anyways, because I know we're going to do a little comparison to the Ioniq 5, but the first thing I noticed when I sat in it was the B pillar, the pillar that was sort of behind my head, that side pillar next to the door when you come in. It was huge. I just noticed my side and rear visibility was, and we haven't fully tested this yet. We're going to buy our own and we're going to test it. But I just noticed, this is a car you're going to need to rely on your blind spot warning cameras. You're going to need to rely on your backup cameras, because I couldn't, I'd turn my head like this and I couldn't see. I don't know if you experienced that, if it was just my seating position that brought the seat up there,
I felt that way too. It was a little bit closed in. The panel, the B pillar was thick. Although it's funny because when Kia did the presentation, they mentioned that it has, the panoramic sunroof or moonroof, but that it also has a shade, which I laughed because I enjoy when you can, cover that up with a shade as well. Because we see a lot of these, especially EVs, that have these beautiful glass ceilings, but they're kind of a pain then when you're in, a hot sunny day. And so I kind of chuckled to myself. But yeah, you can really feel closed in, especially if that roof is closed.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that I noticed most about this car. The Ioniq 5 felt, and I think it was compounded because the Ioniq 5 that I drove had this bright light colored interior, this kind of light gray interior, and this had kind of a dark interior. It almost felt to me that the difference, it felt to me like the Ioniq 5 was kind of like a MacBook, and this felt like a gaming laptop. Like it had this sort of aggressive look. It sort of had that, it's just a little lower. The roof line's a little lower. It kind of felt a little more, little more tough. I don't know, John. What did you think as far as compared to the Ioniq 5? Because these cars are very, very similar. The underlying technology is like basically the same, right?
Yeah, I didn't. So we have our own Ioniq 5, which is what I drove, and then the rented Kia. I found driving very, very similar. The experience was there. They were similar. Maybe there's, the higher trim Kia maybe has slightly different performance or road feel, but overall they're both fully fleshed out feeling EVs. That they're obviously not compromises from a petroleum based combustion engine platform that converted. So right then and there, that they're on par with each other. Usability, I think, is really the key difference there. They each have their own odd controls. The Ioniq 5 has an odd gear selector that is a pod off of the steering column, which is just it's just so unique and so different. It's not even like the big old column shifter you think the three in the tree type of thing. It's a little knob that, much like the Volkswagen ID4, which has something up top, it's like that, and it rotates and it returns back to center. So that's just a little strange. But a lot of the controls, as far as climate and infotainment, are a little more conventional, and that's where the Hyundai really, I think, stands out, in that when it does the conventional, it does it very well, and a person coming from another Hyundai won't have any problem moving into this vehicle. The Kia, excuse me, while it uses buttons and a knob for the gear selector that's in the center console, they minimize the space on the dashboard with the infotainment and climate controls. So you actually have a button, a capacitive touch button that will switch the display underneath the infotainment screen from climate to audio and back. So at first I was wondering why Kia was insisting on just using the volume control in the steering wheel, before I realized that there's a toggle and that the climate control heater knobs then become tuning and volume, which is unique, but at the same time a little distracting.
Unique is a word for it. Yeah, I think it can be problematic in a way when you have a dual purposed control, right? So the fact that it is a hard knob, good, so that no one likes doing everything through the touch screen, right? So the knob, good, but the fact that it's dual purpose, depending on what you happen to have had up last on the screen, can potentially be problematic, right? So if you're in a high stress situation, whatever, you want to quickly turn the radio down, you could potentially turn your heat all the way to freezing. And that would be the worst possible thing when you're in one of those situations. So yeah, unique. We'll go with that.
Yeah. Kelly, I'm curious how long it took you, because I know you're the expert in this, but I think you're just generally smarter than I am. I had to sit there. I can show you on my phone. I had to Google Kia EV6 volume, because I could not figure out how to turn the volume down in this thing. And I could tell.
Just use the steering wheel and avoid it.
Well, that's what I did, but I'm thinking this can't be the only control. And, I was thinking, is it like the Lexus UX where it has those weird little thumb wheels on the center console? Is there like something on the side? And then I said, why is this? Oh, that's an LCD. That's a changeable display here. Why is this way? But it's a touchscreen, that toggle button. So you can't even find it by feel to switch between the knobs.
It definitely is going to be something people are going to want to sit down and learn it and realize that essentially what looks like the, navigation arrow or like a paper airplane, type of symbol, changes it to the anything but the climate control. So once you learn it, then you'll get it. And, we're moving in this direction of everything through the touchscreen, for better or for worse. So, it definitely still has some bonuses because it has hard controls for some things. But if you learn it, hopefully you'll get better at it, but it's not intuitive.
So we will have, we're going to buy one of our own, and we're going to talk about what it's going to be like when we buy one of our own. We are steeling ourselves to buy one of our own right now. And we'll have, more full, more comprehensive tests and more likely on a version which isn't the, souped up GT line with all the bells and whistles. We'll have one more that's more affordable. But David from Los Angeles wrote in to TalkingCars@iCloud.com with a question that's very relevant here. It's exciting to see all of the EVs that are coming to market, but with low inventory and high demand, I feel helpless as a consumer since dealers continue to mark up cars over MSRP, not honor nationally advertised lease or finance offers, and disregard agreed upon prices at the time a pre-order reservation is made. Do you have any recommendations on how to navigate this process as a consumer? I know that waiting it out is always an option, but is there any EV specific advice to avoid dealer markups? And I'll just start here that, I was the person who on our team bought the Ioniq 5. And in case you don't know, Consumer Reports, we go and buy cars for our test program, and we use anonymous emails. We use disguised phone numbers. We don't give our full information until the very last second that we have to. So when I called around, I found two dealers, the closest two dealers to us, and these are Hyundai dealers for the Ioniq 5, but it should be pretty similar. The first two dealers said, we're not even authorized to sell it. We haven't been trained. We can't sell you one. We're sorry. And so that was, so then I'm an hour away from where I live. And I finally found a dealer, and they just said right off the bat, you're going to have to pay $3,000 on top of MSRP. And that was, we had to agree to that. Even with our savvy team of car buyers here, we just had to agree with that. So even we got gouged on this car, on the Ioniq 5. So with the EV6 coming in through sort of a similar set of dealers, I don't know, Kelly, do you have any advice?
I think there's a lot at play right now, just with the inventory of cars. I think that it's, one of the worst possible times to buy a new car in terms of getting a deal. And so that probably plays into it as well. But also the fact that it's an EV, I think that there's a surprising amount of more demand than dealers probably pre-planned for. And so they are kind of selling like hotcakes. They're, barely on the lot before they're gone. Sometimes they're even promised and sold before the dealer even gets it on the lot. And I did ask our sustainability and policy advisor on this at CR, and he said that also there is a strategy from some of the car companies. They're trying to sell them only in select locations where buyers can get kind of rebates and the tax benefits, but also the companies also get some kickback and rebates also for selling these environmentally friendly vehicles in places like California. So it depends on where you are and lots of factors that are going on right now. So I don't know if I have a tip or trick. Patience is probably key, but I don't know how long all this is going to last.
John, does that mean that we're going to, people are going to ironically have to drive, 350 miles to get a car with a 330 mile range?
Yeah, that's a potential. Maybe hopefully you have a trailer on your other vehicle. It's a shame. I would say that, like any advice with don't make the decision to buy a car when you're desperately in need of it. Even more so with an EV, and if you're looking to switch into an EV, the only thing that's going to happen with EVs is that there's going to be even more choice going forward, and hopefully less expensive. Now, some of the advice is, look, if you're looking to buy a Nissan, or you're looking to buy a Ford, or you're looking to buy a Toyota, though they don't have a full EV yet, the federal tax credits are going to soon sunset as far as the full $7,500 or the full availability, and you'll start having fewer available. There'll be a lower amount of money you can get on your taxes. Much like Tesla and General Motors, they've run out of credits now. They've sunsetted. The sunset's going to start for Nissan within this year, maybe by 2023 at the latest.
So $3,000 markup, $7,500 tax credit.
Right. Well, and it is a huge thing. It's eating up that credit, and maybe the dealers are using that to their advantage, knowing that people are going to get that, so they're willing to pay it. I think the bigger challenge that will be for consumers is that the buying online, ordering process may be what you see now versus going in and kicking tires and driving home in a car. There will still be those people, but for the most part, manufacturers like knowing what they have to build and not building more. Dealers like not having inventory sitting on their floor planning, their floor plan, basically paying interest on a lot of cars sitting on the lot, that they cost them a lot of money. So it may be much more of a world where you're ordering, waiting, planning, as if you were buying a BMW or a Mercedes in the 80s or 90s, where you would order it and 3 months later it would show up. That may be the new way of buying a vehicle, which will, raise prices and they'll be firmer. That's all until one manufacturer says, look, we need to make more sales, and they start throwing money on the hood, and then you get into price wars like we've seen in the past. But there's a paradigm shift definitely in the way we're buying cars going forward.
Oh, that's some good advice. I think we've talked enough about Kia this week. We talked enough about the EV6, but if you want to read more, if you can't get enough, if you're thinking about buying it, if it's worth paying maybe a little markup even to get it, head over to cr.org and you'll find tons of pictures, video, more information about the car. Thanks so much for talking cars with us. Any questions for us, send them to talkingcars@icloud.com, and we'll talk again soon.